Hello, dolls. Welcome to my yard in Reseda. I'm going to discuss something I don't really talk about too much, certainly publicly, which is my spiritual life. My next memoir, my third one, is going to be called Sex, God, and Rock and Roll. And actually, I wish I could claim that I thought that title up, but my ex-husband Michael thought it up. He's pretty witty. So it is about sex, God, and rock and roll. Not necessarily in that order. So I'm going to read you a little clip of this book called Sex, God, and Rock and Roll, Confessions of a Guru-Pee, because alongside my rock and roll life, my married life, my whole life has been my spiritual quest. There's a lot more to the universe than meets the eye, the heart, the mind, or the pussy. So there's a lot to it. And I always knew there was more. You know, there's a veil. I feel like there's a veil right here. And you have to peer through it because there's so much more. Okay, this is the introduction, which I called Treat Me Nice. It's my favorite Elvis song. I had finally made it to Graceland. Primo rock and roll Mecca, land of the king, which felt eerily like Jerusalem, another holy land where I had swoonily walked the stations of the cross. Land of the King of Kings. It sounds slightly blasphemous even to me. Nevertheless, as I peeked into Elvis's 70 modern kitchen time capsule, wandered through the wacky plastic flowered jungle room, and the multi-mirrored den full of TVs where my rock hero once cocked his pistol and killed the annoying Technicolor version of Robert Goulet, the high-end orange shag carpet beneath my feet felt like holy ground. When I peered longingly up the cordoned-off stairs where the king had laid his weary body down on the massive round bed as the sun rose in the... Is it the east or the west? Tell me, Nicole.
The east.
The east. Good, I wrote the east. Yay for me! Okay. The longing I felt was transcendently acute. In front of his office paraphernalia, I stealthily broke ranks and bent over the velvet ropes to get a close-up look at his books that his daughter, Lisa Marie, had placed on his kingly desk. I felt a startling, unexpected kinship because the king had highlighted copious passages in the Science of Mind textbook by founder Ernest Holmes, Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, and several other familiar mystic tomes. I vividly remember scanning passages about the spiritual superiority of women. The king knew what was up. And we all know Elvis died on his bathroom throne reading about the discovery of the Turin Shroud that supposedly swaddled the Lord after he was taken off the cross. It just so happens that my discovery of both Elvis and Jesus occurred nearly simultaneously. At least that's the way it seems to me looking back, lo, these many years. I was just a little girl, torn between two lovers. It took me almost a lifetime to realize that I could love Jesus and Elvis with all my heart and not wind up in the fiery furnace. I have come to the conclusion that there is no hell anyway, except the one we create ourselves. So that's part of my introduction. And I have some tomes here that have affected my life through the years. I've got about 100 more, which I will share eventually. This is my first Bible, which I still treasure. It was given to me by my Aunt Edna, my dad's sister, who inspired me her whole life. She was a Christian in the real sense of the word, but she didn't push the whole idea on people the way it's done nowadays. And to her, Jesus was the all and everything. And she wanted to be like him. Here it is, Pamela Miller, 8037 Jameson Avenue, right down the street now in Reseda, same zip code. She gave this to me June 21st, 1963, for my junior high school graduation. At one point, I got a little worried because my pastor at my Methodist church was telling us we couldn't dance. That was a sin. That freaked me out really hard, and I stopped going to that church. And I went through my Bible like crazy. There's a lot of things. You can see how I circled a lot of things, underlined things. I was looking for somewhere in here where it said dancing was a sin, and it's not in here. Isn't that great? In fact, it says, talks about music being a really important force for good. Look at all this underlining. Wow, I was serious about the Bible, right? Soon after this, though, I started taking lessons with Paramahansa Yogananda's Self-Realization Fellowship. I was still in high school when that happened. It became very important to me because he said Jesus was an awakened master. Kind of like himself, Yogananda. He never compared himself. But even on the altars, there was Jesus along with his masters that came before in his lineage. So I studied that in high school. People thought I was a little cuckoo bird, but that's fine. We're talking about 1964, 5, you know? So I was on a quest. I've been on this quest forever. I'm sure this isn't the first lifetime I've been through soul searching, and it's just been incredible. So the whole book that I'm writing is about that search. Krishnamurti came soon after Yogananda in my progression towards enlightenment, which is my biggest goal in life. And it's very interesting how I got involved with Krishnamurti. Of course, I saw him speak many, many times, and being in his presence was like, it's indescribable to be in the presence of an enlightened master. He didn't like to call himself that, though. You were not allowed to worship him, which is the way it should be. That's not, Jesus didn't want to be worshipped either. But I was hitchhiking, and an actor, a real character actor, boy, he's a character too. Harry Dean Stanton picked me up. He passed a couple years ago. What a guy. And he said, "Do you want to come over for a cup of tea?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" It was probably 1971 or something. And I went to his house, and indeed, he made me a cup of tea. He didn't hit on me, but he said, "I have something for you." And he handed me a book by Krishnamurti called You Are the World, which was a huge mind F that made no sense to me at all at the time. But the more I went to see Krishnamurti speak, I kind of started to get it. And, you know, I was a little green about it all. I didn't know quite what it meant, but he said his main line to all of us was, "The observer is the observed." For a little while there, I got involved with the Conversations with God books. And they are pretty fantastic channeled books by Neil Donald Walsh. Oh, here's a good one. Jesus was a feminist, which he was. You weren't allowed to hang around with ladies back then, especially poor ladies, especially ladies who had a different kind of lifestyle. And my dear teacher Light taught me how to read for people after they pass. I just lost a really good friend, Marty Ross, who I loved, my comedian friend Marty. And we read for people after they've passed to help them through the different Bardal states, which comes from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But Light, my darling teacher, turned me on to the American Book of the Dead. I read to people from that, and I feel them. I feel their presence. Many, many people I have read for. Next time, there's so much more to cover with this topic. Next time I'll discuss the Fourth Way School, which I was in for 5 years. It was really something else. I usually give them at least 5 years. Now it's what I'm doing is chanting. So I'll tell you more about that too.